The sky was dark, and the wind moved slowly through the trees. Daniel sat on his wooden porch with a warm cup of tea in his hand. His dog, Rufus, a big black shepherd mix, had gone into the woods like he did every evening. It was peaceful here now. City noise, no people, just the forest, his old dog, and a simple life. Daniel liked it that way, but tonight something felt strange. The wind carried a smell he couldn't recognize, like burning metal and cold air. He stood up and looked into the trees. That's when Rufus came running out from the woods, ears alert, tail stiff, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, something moved, small and quick at first. Daniel thought it was another animal, maybe a fox, but it wasn't. It stepped into the moonlight. And Daniel froze. It was a girl, no, not exactly. She was small, maybe 4 feet tall, with silver blue skin that shimmered like water. Her eyes were big and glowing. Her hair was thin and almost white. She had no shoes, no clothes, only a torn blanket wrapped around her body. And she looked directly at Daniel, afraid, but not wild. Rufus barked once, but then stopped, standing beside her like she was part of his pack. Daniel took a step forward, slowly, not wanting to scare her. "Hey there," he said softly. "Are you lost?" She tilted her head, but didn't answer. Her lips moved, but the sound that came out wasn't any language Daniel knew. It was soft and music, almost like a whisper mixed with wind chimes. The girl looked at the house, then at Rufus, and slowly walked toward the porch. Daniel didn't move. His heart was racing. Was she an alien? Was this real? She climbed the steps, barefoot and shaking, and sat right next to the dog. Rufus licked her hand, a tay, and she smiled a small, broken smile. That's when Daniel saw it. Her arms were covered in small cuts and bruises, some glowing faintly blue. She had been hurt recently. He opened the door, unsure, and said, "Do you want to come inside?" She looked up at him, eyes wide, then nodded very slowly. Inside, Daniel wrapped her in a warm blanket and sat her by the fireplace. He gave her water, and she drank fast, like she hadn't had any in days. He tried asking questions. "What's your name? Where are you from?" She only stared at the flames, silent. Then she pointed toward the forest and made a shaking motion. "Someone scared you?" Daniel guessed. She didn't answer, but her lip trembled, and she looked away. Later, after she fell asleep on the couch next to Rufus, Daniel stepped outside. He looked at the stars, his mind spinning. What was she? Where did she come from? Was she dangerous or in danger? His thoughts were broken when he noticed something. Tiny footprints, glowing blue, leading from the trees to his garden. They weren't just footprints, there were claw marks too, as if someone, or something, had been chasing her. Daniel followed the trail with a flashlight. The tracks ended suddenly, near his fence, there, in the dirt, was something odd, a small metal piece, like a chip, with blinking lights. He picked it up. Feeling cold metal against his skin, suddenly, the lights on the chip turned red. Daniel dropped it as it sparked and smoked. It was a tracker, he was sure of it. Someone was looking for her. He ran back to the house, heart pounding. Inside, the girl was still sleeping, curled against the dog, who watched over her like a guardian. Daniel knew he couldn't tell anyone, not yet. Not the police, not the military, no one. Whoever this girl was, she needed help, not cages. And for some reason, Rufus trusted her meant something. Daniel sat down on the floor. Watching her sleep, he whispered to himself, "What the hell did you bring home, boy?" Rufus wagged his tail once and laid his head on her small shoulder. The fireplace crackled, and outside in the dark forest, unseen eyes were already watching. When the sun rose the next morning, Daniel expected to find the couch empty, he half thought. The strange silver girl was a dream, a tired man's imagination, but she was still there, sleeping soundly with Rufus curled beside her like a protector. She looked peaceful now, even human till the light hit her skin. It shimmered again, like soft metal warmed by the sun. Daniel stood quietly, watching her breathe. He noticed her hands, small but strong-looking fingers, longer than a human's. Her nails looked like soft crystal, and her skin had tiny patterns across it, like the design on a leaf. She wasn't human. That was clear, but something in her posture, in the way she slept beside the dog, made her feel harmless. She woke slowly, blinking her wide, glowing eyes. For a moment, she looked confused, afraid. Then her eyes found Rufus, and she smiled a real, innocent smile. Daniel raised a hand gently. "Good morning." She watched his lips as he spoke, then mimicked the motion with her mouth. "Guh. ... She whispered, struggling. Daniel stepped into the kitchen and made simple toast with honey. She followed him quietly, taking small steps like a wild creature, learning to trust. When he offered her the toast, she sniffed it, then licked it, and finally bit into it. She devoured the rest in seconds, her face lighting up with happiness as she ate. Daniel placed a notebook and pencil on the table. He drew a picture of a stick figure and wrote, "Me, Daniel." Then he pointed to himself. "Daniel," he said clearly. She looked at the drawing, touched it, then pointed at him. "DAA ... NYL." She tried. He smiled and nodded. She stared at the page for a while, then took the pencil. Her fingers moved faster than any child's. She drew a star, then a symbol like a spiral, then what looked like two moons crossing. Then she drew a smaller version of herself, standing under those shapes. Finally, she tapped her chest. "Leary," she said softly. Daniel stared at the name. "Leary," he repeated. She smiled again, wider this time, her eyes glowing a little brighter. But just as fast, her smile faded. She turned the page and began to draw. Again this time, it was different. She drew dark shapes, clawed shadows chasing her. Then a small cage, with herself inside it. Then a ship. Flying through the sky, her hands began to shake. And Daniel placed his hand over hers, gently. "It's okay, you're safe now," he said, though he didn't know if it was true. Suddenly, she stood up and pointed outside, her voice urgent. Daniel followed her to the door, where she pressed her face to the glass, looking at the sky. A low hum filled the air, a distant sound, almost like an engine far away. Her body stiffened. Her breath quickened. "Leary," she whispered to herself. Then grabbed Daniel's hand tightly. That's when Daniel realized someone might be searching for her, maybe not someone kind. She wasn't just hiding, she was running. Rufus barked once and ran to the window too. Something flashed in the sky. Far above, a flicker of silver. Then it was gone, like a satellite tore a ship. Passing by, too fast to see clearly, Leary backed away, shaking her head and making sounds Daniel didn't understand. He led her back inside, pulled the curtains shut. He felt something shift inside him, not just curiosity now, but concerned. This wasn't a stray animal. And it wasn't some lost child. This was someone who had escaped something terrifying. She sat down on the rug and curled up with Rufus again. Daniel sat beside her, his mind racing. If she was being hunted, then keeping her here was dangerous. But the thought of turning her over to who? The government? The military? Scientists? Made his stomach turn. She looked at him, her eyes pleading, her voice soft. "Don't let them take," she said. Her English was broken, but the fear in her voice was clear. Daniel reached out and touched her hand gently. "No one's taking you," he promised, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Whatever Leary had escaped from, it wasn't done looking for her. And next time, it might come straight to his door. Leary wasn't just hiding anymore, she was healing, day by day. The alien girl became less of a stranger and more like someone Daniel couldn't imagine the house without. She still didn't speak much, but when she did, her words were clearer, more confident, and she laughed now often, especially when Rufus chased his own tail or barked at squirrels. Daniel had fixed up the guest room, put soft pillows on the floor, and even found a few old children's books from the attic. Leary couldn't read English, but she stared at the pictures for hours. Sometimes she'd draw next to them strange machines, tall trees with glowing leaves, and creatures that looked like flying fish. Daniel didn't ask her too many questions. Not yet. She was still recovering from something. Every night she had nightmares screaming in a language that Daniel didn't understand. Rufus would crawl into bed with her, pressing his warm body against hers until she stopped shaking. One morning, Daniel went outside to work on his old truck. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Leary stood there, watching him closely, her head tilted. She pointed at the wrench in his hand. "Tool." He smiled. "Yes, this is a wrench." "Wrench," she repeated, then pointed at the engine, broken. Daniel nodded, curious. "You know about engines?" She stepped forward and reached into the open hood, her fingers tracing wires and tubes like she'd done it 100 times. Then she tapped a specific wire and made a clicking noise. Daniel leaned in and blinked. "You're saying this connection is wrong?" She nodded. Serious. He adjusted it the way she showed him and the engine started. His eyes widened. "How did you?" But she just smiled and shrugged, her glowing eyes sparkling in the sunlight. Leary wasn't just smart, she was advanced. Daniel realized she must have come from somewhere far more developed than Earth. But if that was true, why was someone with so much knowledge running like a frightened child? Later that day, Daniel took Leary and Rufus out to the nearby field. It was open and quiet, with wildflowers and a clear view of the sky. Leary ran ahead, spinning in the tall grass with her arms out like wings. She laughed, free and joyful, and Daniel felt something inside him shift. It wasn't just kindness now, or curiosity. It was something deeper, something that made him want to protect her no matter the cost. She wasn't his daughter, and she wasn't even human. But watching her chase Rufus through the field, she felt like family. Suddenly, Rufus stopped barking. His ears went flat. Leary noticed it too. Freezing mid-run, Daniel followed their gaze. At the edge of the field, hidden in the trees, something moved. A small black drone floated there silent, cold, and watching, Daniel's heart dropped. Leary took a step back, her smile gone, her hands shaking. "No," she whispered. "No." More, before Daniel could react. The drone zipped upward into the sky, disappearing in seconds. Leary fell to her knees, covering her face. Daniel ran to her side. "It's gone. It's okay." But her body was trembling. She pulled up her sleeve and showed him her arms. Under the skin was a small bump, like a rice grain. She looked up at him, terrified. "They still find me?" Daniel clenched his fists. She had a tracker still inside her without another word. He carried her back home. Inside, he turned on a bright light and grabbed a first aid kit. "I need to take it out," he said, his voice firm. She looked scared, but nodded. She lay down on the table, biting a cloth, tears in her eyes, with trembling hands. Daniel made a small cut and pulled out a tiny metallic chip. It blinked red. Leary's scream was muffled, but she didn't fight. As soon as the chip was out, Daniel smashed it with a hammer. Breaking it into pieces, they both sat in silence. For a long time afterward, Rufus licked Leary's hand, and Daniel wrapped her arm in clean bandages. "You're safe," he said. "You're not going back." She looked up at him slowly, and then, for the first time, she reached forward and wrapped her arms around his chest. It was an awkward, tight hug, shaky but strong. "Thank you, Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. He held her close, a lump forming in his throat. He had lived alone for years, by choice, but now he felt something new. This girl, this alien girl, was no longer just a visitor. She was family. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat by the window with an old rifle across his lap. The broken tracker lay in pieces on the kitchen table. But still, he didn't feel safe. Every time the wind moved a branch, his heart jumped outside. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Leary was in the guest room, curled up beside Rufus. Her arm was still sore, but she hadn't cried. She had been through worse, Daniel could tell. She slept like someone who never felt safe, even in dreams. Daniel's mind raced. He had found the chip, yes, but what if it had already sent her location? What if that black drone wasn't just watching but reporting? And who was it reporting to? The next morning, Daniel decided to take Leary deeper into the forest away from the house. He packed a small bag, some food, a flashlight, and water. He didn't explain much, just handed her a jacket and said, "We're going somewhere safe." She didn't ask why. She simply nodded and followed. Rufus walking beside her as always. They hiked for hours, taking hidden paths only Daniel knew. At last, they reached an old hunter's cabin, abandoned years ago. It was dusty. The roof had holes, but it would work for now. Daniel fixed up the inside quickly, while Leary walked in circles. Touching everything curiously, she found a map nailed to the wall. Old and faded, she stared at it, then slowly pointed at one of the spots near a river bend. Ship. Maybe? Here, she said, voice soft. Daniel raised his brows. Your ship. She nodded, crashed, hidden, long. Long time, his heart skipped a beat. If her ship was there, maybe it had answers. Maybe even tools or communication. But before he could say more, something loud tore through the sky. A deep, low rumble. Like thunder, but not from any storm. They ran outside, up above. 3 small black ships flew across the clouds in perfect formation. They didn't stop, didn't shoot, but they were scanning. Watching, Leary grabbed Daniel's hand and said, "Just one word. Hunters. They were here, not soldiers, not scientists, something worse. They weren't coming to talk, they were coming to take." Daniel rushed back inside and started nailing boards across the windows. He handed Leary an old radio and flashlight. "If we get separated, turn this on. I'll find you." She looked at him, her eyes wide. "No leave," she whispered. "You stay." "I stay." He wanted to smile, but there was no time. Rufus growled suddenly. Low and deep, facing the door. Then Daniel heard it, a rustling sound outside. Slow, steady footsteps through dry leaves. He lifted the rifle and whispered, "Stay." Behind me, but the door didn't open. Instead, a voice came from outside. Cold and metallic, return the subject, human. "This is your only warning." Leary gasped and backed away, whispering something in her own language. Daniel called out, "She's not yours." Silence. Then a different voice, deeper, more threatening. "She was built, not born. She belongs to us." Daniel's hands clenched around the rifle. "She belongs to no one," he said. There was a sharp hiss-like gas being released, then the door exploded open. A tall figure stepped through, armored head to toe in black metal. Behind him, 2 others with glowing weapons followed. Their faces were hidden, but their movements were fast, too fast. Daniel fired, but the bullet bounced off the armor. The alien soldier raised a hand and aimed his weapon, but before he could shoot, something incredible happened. Leary screamed, a sound not of fear, but of power. Her body glowed white-blue, and a wave of energy burst from her chest. The soldiers were thrown backward into the walls, their weapons clattering to the floor. She stood tall now, not afraid, eyes burning like stars. She looked more alien than ever, but more alive too. Daniel stared, speechless. The girl he took in, the one who curled up with his dog and drew in notebooks. She wasn't just a child. She was something far greater. But even now, with the hunters stunned and retreating, Leary turned to Daniel with fear. More would come, stronger ones. "We run," she said, tears in her eyes. Daniel grabbed her hand, nodded, and looked at Rufus. "Then we run, and together, under the morning sky, they vanished into the forest once more, not just hiding this time, but preparing for whatever came next. The forest was no longer quiet. Birds didn't sing. The wind didn't whisper, and the animals had all vanished. Daniel knew the silence meant only one thing: they were being hunted. He and Leary ran deeper into the woods, Rufus never leaving their side. Every now and then, Daniel would stop, check the compass, and look for signs. No drones. No shadows, not yet. But Leary kept looking over her shoulder, eyes glowing brighter with every step. She wasn't just afraid, she remembered this kind of fear. They finally reached a narrow cave hidden behind a waterfall. Daniel had found it years ago during a fishing trip. He never thought he'd be using it to hide from alien bounty hunters. Inside, the cave was cold and damp, but dry enough to rest. Leary sat down and hugged Rufus, who licked her face and whined softly. Daniel watched them, wiping sweat from his brow. "We can't keep running," he said. "We need a plan." Leary looked up slowly. "Ship?" she said. "We find ship." Daniel nodded. "You said near River Bend." She closed her eyes and began to hum a soft, low tune as she hummed. Her skin started glowing faintly blue. Lines appeared along her arms, symbols Daniel couldn't read. The cave wall behind her flickered down suddenly. A hologram appeared. It showed a top-down map of the region Earth terrain mixed with alien lines. Leary pointed at a glowing point on the map. "Here," she whispered. "Ship sleep." Daniel stared at the map, amazed. "How are you doing this?" She placed a hand over her chest, memory waking, bits of who she was, what she was. Coming back, they had to move fast. Night was falling, and the hunters wouldn't stop. Daniel packed a small bag, batteries, water, canned food, and a rope. He gave Leary a flashlight and a whistle, just in case they got separated. The path to the river bend was dangerous. Thorns scratched their legs. Old fallen trees blocked their way. But Leary moved like she knew the land. At one point, she crouched down and brushed away some leaves, revealing old metal, a buried hatch. "This it?" Daniel asked, heart racing. Leary nodded and touched the surface. It reacted to her touch, lighting up in soft blue lines. With a hiss, the hatch slid open, revealing a dark tunnel. They stepped down into the unknown, the air colder and heavier. Daniel's flashlight flickered, but Leary's skin glowed brighter, lighting the way. The walls were smooth and metallic, with strange plants growing along the edges. At the end of the tunnel was a round door, sealed shut with a glowing symbol. Leary placed both hands on it and began to hum again. The door vibrated and, then, slowly, it opened. Inside was a small alien ship, barely the size of a van. Dusty, damaged, but intact. Daniel walked around it. "Can it fly?" Leary touched a panel near the front. Nothing happened. She looked disappointed. "No power." Then her eyes widened. "But maybe fix." Daniel opened his backpack. "Then let's fix it." He didn't know how to repair alien tech, but he knew how to build. How to connect wires? Leary guided him, using broken words and hand gestures together. They began pulling out wires, connecting power cells, and rerouting energy. Hours passed, and the cave echoed with the sound of sparks and tools. Finally, the ship hummed low and soft like a heartbeat. Leary touched the control pad, and lights flickered across the walls. "It lives," she whispered, smiling. Just then, Rufus growled. Daniel turned toward the cave entrance, footsteps, slow and heavy. Shadows moved outside. The hunters had found them. Daniel grabbed the rifle. "Get in the ship." Leary hesitated, her face pale. "No leave," she said. "You come. I'll hold them," Daniel said, standing firm, but before he could take a step, Leary slammed her hand on the control pad. A shield of blue light burst from the ship's surface, surrounding them all. Rufus barked as the cave lit up with blinding light. The hunters stepped into the cave, weapons raised, but the shield held strong. And the ship's engines began to hum louder. The walls shook as the ship began to rise. Daniel stared in disbelief. "We're flying?" Leary nodded, reaching for his hand. The ship blasted through the stone ceiling, shooting up into the night sky. Outside, the forest lit up in blue flames as the hunters were left behind. Screaming in rage, Daniel held Rufus tightly as they broke. Through the clouds, wind rushed around them, but inside the ship, it was quiet, peaceful. Leary leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder and whispered, "Safe for now," but Daniel knew this was just the beginning. Wherever this ship could take them, it had to be far. Because the people hunting Leary weren't going to stop, and now they'd seen Daniel's face too. The stars outside the window were quiet, but inside the ship, Daniel's heart pounded like a war drum. He sat in the co-pilot chair, breathing hard, staring at the glowing alien buttons all around him. Rufus was curled at his feet, ears twitching. And Leary was different now. She stood at the front console, arms glowing gently, her skin pulsing with soft blue light. Her long silver hair floated slightly, as if she were underwater. The ship was responding to her, like it knew her, or belonged to her. Daniel finally asked the question that had been eating at him for days. "What are you, Leary?" Not to hurt her, not to accuse her. He just needed to know the truth. She didn't answer at first, just looked down at her hands. Then she spoke softly. "I was not born like you." She turned to face him, her glowing eyes sad but calm. "I was made." Daniel felt his breath catch. "Made?" She nodded slowly, walking toward him, in lab. "By those who hunt me." Her voice cracked. "Not child, not human, not anything." Daniel shook his head. "You're someone." "I've seen it," she smiled faintly. "You gave me name, gave me food. Dog gave me warmth. No one gave before." The ship beeped softly, interrupting the moment. Leary walked to the console and tapped a few symbols. A hologram appeared showing 5 large ships moving slowly through the sky. "Those are the hunters?" Daniel asked. Leary nodded. "Their fleet?" Daniel leaned forward. "They're tracking us." "No," she said. "They are." "Waiting? Waiting for what?" She looked over her shoulder, her voice lower now, for the signal to activate. "Me again." Daniel stood, heart frozen. "What do you mean, activate?" She took a shaky breath. "I was made for one thing, war." Her hand lit up, and a small section of her arm opened to show metal beneath, "but I escaped before they could finish." He stared at her in shock. "So you're like a weapon?" She looked down, ashamed. "But I don't want to be," she whispered. "I don't want to hurt." Daniel stepped forward and knelt beside her. "You saved me back there, Leary. That wasn't a weapon. That was someone brave, for a moment." She didn't speak. Then she reached into a hidden compartment in the ship and pulled out a small crystal, glowing red at its center. "This is core peace. If they get this, they control me." She handed it to Daniel, her hand trembling. "Destroy if I change. Promise me." Daniel took the crystal, staring at the pulsing light. He clenched his jaw. "No one's taking you again. And no one's changing you." Just then, an alert sounded on the ship. A red light blinked on the Panalan incoming signal. Leary ran to the controls. Face pale. "They found us," she whispered. "But not just me." "All like me." Daniel blinked. "There are more of you?" "Yes," she said. "Others. Sleeping. Hidden in ships. Abandoned like me." The signal showed dozens of red dots appearing across the map. Her eyes filled with fear and something else guilt. If they activate, galaxy burns, she said. Daniel stood, voice firm. Then, we stop it. She looked at him, shocked. You help? He nodded. Of course. We'll find the others before they do. Wake them before they're turned into weapons, but dangerous, she warned. They might not be like me. Might attack. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. Then I'll stand between them and the world. Just like I stood for you, her. Eyes softened. For the first time, she looked like a leader, not a scared child. Leary walked back to the center console and typed in new coordinates. Then we go here, she said, pointing to a planet marked with a single green dot. First, Sleeper. My sister, Daniel nodded, gripping the ship's railing as the engines roared to life. The ship turned sharply, racing through the stars. He looked at Rufus, who gave a short bark. Ready for anything, this wasn't just about hiding anymore. It was a mission now to find the lost, to save what could be saved, and stop a war before it began. And at the center of it all, an alien girl who followed his dog home. The ship hovered silently above the green planet. Leary stood at the front, hands glowing softly. Guiding the ship as if it were an extension of her body, Daniel sat beside her, watching the clouds swirl. Beneath them, Rufus lay quietly near their feet, ears alert, nose twitching, sensing something was coming. This is it? Daniel asked, eyes fixed on the strange, glowing forest below. Leary nodded slowly. Yes, she sleeps here. My sister Daniel wasn't sure what to expect, another girl like Leary, or a true weapon that didn't want to be saved. The ship landed quietly on soft moss that sparkled with strange blue lights. The trees were tall, with wide leaves that pulsed gently, like they were breathing. Daniel stepped out first, rifle on his back. Eyes alert, Leary followed, holding a scanner in one hand and a glowing crystal in the other. Rufus led the way. Nose to the ground, they walked for an hour, following strange signals and trails of ancient alien markings carved into the trees. Then, finally, they found it, a metal pod buried under roots, half covered in crystal vines. Leary stepped closer, brushing away the glowing branches. Her voice was low, almost shaking. This is her. Her name is Arya. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. Ready? Leary hesitated. Then touched the center of the pod. The surface lit up instantly, lines crawling like veins. Pulsing faster, louder, the pod opened with a soft hiss. Steam rising as the figure inside slowly sat up. It was a girl taller than Leary, with darker blue skin and sharper eyes. Her expression was cold, confused, and guarded. She looked straight at Leary, then at Daniel. Enemy? She asked in a low, robotic voice. Leary stepped forward quickly. No, Arya. He is friend. Arya's eyes glowed red for a moment, then dimmed. Where are we? She asked, blinking slowly. You were asleep, Leary explained gently. I woke you. We're free. Arya touched her chest, frowning. No orders. No target. Leary shook her head. No, we are not weapons anymore. Arya stood fully now, her body moving like a machine learning how to breathe. Then, for a moment, her eyes softened. You saved me, she asked, almost a whisper. Leary nodded. Yes. Like he saved me, pointing at Daniel. Arya looked at him with confusion. Why? Daniel gave a small smile. Because everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be. Arya blinked again, like those words didn't exist in her language, but slowly she nodded. I want to choose. Suddenly, Leary's scanner beeped sharply multiple pings. She turned the screen around and Daniel saw it too. More pods, all across the galaxy, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some were waking up already. Without guidance, without names, if we don't reach them before the hunters do. Leary whispered, "They'll be used." Daniel finished. The mission wasn't over, not even close. Leary looked at her sister, then at Daniel. "Can you help more?" she asked, voice soft. Daniel looked at the two alien girls standing before him, creatures designed for war. Now choosing peace, he looked down at Rufus, who wagged his tail once, as if saying, "Of course." Daniel took a deep breath and smiled. "Let's go save your family." Back on the ship, the girls worked together, Arya learning quickly, Leary leading confidently. They added the new locations to the map. Their faces calm but focused. For the first time, they had a direction. A purpose, not to fight, but to rescue. As the ship launched into the stars again, Daniel sat by the window, staring at Earth fading behind them. He had been just a man living alone in the woods with an old dog. Now, he was flying through space with two alien girls and a mission that might save worlds. He didn't understand all of it, and he didn't need to, because when Leary sat beside him, smiling, and leaned her head on his shoulder, he felt something. Clear, not fear, not confusion, but peace. She had once been a stranger in the garden. Now, she was his family. And out there among the stars, many more waited for the same hope. One girl, one dog, and one human man would find them and give them the same gift: freedom, choice, and home.